So, as you can tell by the title, we're here to discuss rumors, speculations about the new Spider Man movie that has just started filming recently. And we're also going to bring up a little bit of Doctor Strange when the movie coming out later this year, I believe.
Yeah, later.
Yeah?
Oh, no,
Or no,
maybe,
next
maybe
year.
like 2021, 2022,
Okay.
something like that.
So
yeah.
we still got a long way to wait, but
There's so much to talk about. So much to talk about.
first let's talk about the actors.
Yeah, so we all know the rumors about our Toby, our Andrew, and our precious little Tom coming back to the MCU.
But so there's a little bit of insight when it comes to getting these two guys back into the reprising the role as Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire has came out and said he would do it freely. It would just take a big stack of cash.
Yeah, and then with Andrew, I haven't heard anything from him. Have you?
I have not, but I mean, I think it's safe to say he would love to do it because I remember when he wasn't in the role anymore, like he realized Tom Holland was gonna take over as Spider-Man. I remember he getting interviewed and he said he likes being a fan again. Like he prefers to be a fan than the actual thing.
But he was crushed when he heard that Tom got the role from him, essentially stole it, I guess. Kind of. Not in a way, but got recasted. You know, any actor would feel shame, not shame, but regret or sentiment when it comes to that.
It was like the situation with Jared Leto being upset that he wasn't in the Joker movie. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But Andrew's case, it's not that petty, right? Like in the end, he supported Tom Holland and
because he knows how hard it is to make it big as an actor, right?
It is.
Tom wasn't super well known. He did do one movie when he was a kid with Ewan McGregor on a hurricane that hit a village, and
that sounds very traumatic.
Yeah, it was, but all green screen, so Tom was okay. He made it out alive. It was based on a true story, so you know there's also tough times within that. Anyway, back to Spider-Man 3. So, with Spider-Man 3, can we discuss Andrew for a second? The only thing that we really know about it is Electro is coming back. So can we geek out about that for just a second?
Yes, I believe nobody else can play Electro like Jamie Foxx. There's no other performance that would top that. He looked the part, he sounded the part. I feel like if they were to hire anybody else, it would have to be like Michael B. Jordan or something. You know what I mean? Like someone with the likeness of Jamie Foxx, but I don't think he would have made a much bigger impact.
Sure, but I'm just glad that this time, you know, Jamie said on his Instagram when he announced he's coming back as Electro, he's like, I won't be blue this time. I won't be blue.
Yeah, he's actually going to have one of those, like, comic book looking costumes. Because that's what Marvel likes to do. They like to put everybody in their old classic gear.
Yeah, do justice for the fans in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's exciting. You know, I've seen lots of concept art, nothing official. But like, you know, they got the classic Electro suit with the, you know, the yellow and the green. I just hope it doesn't have like the starfish one. Have you seen that? Yeah, it's just
like what? Like the old cartoons.
The old cartoon one. You ever see the boys meme where it's like, you know, they got all the old classic Spider-Man rogues?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that star I will not be happy with if they decide to bring that back. In any case, let's talk Toby for a second.
I can't believe he's coming back. Like, when Toby was first announced as becoming Spider-Man, actually a lot of people were under speculation he wasn't going to do very good. Because at that time, he was only known for, like, small roles in, like, TV shows. Because actually, his mother is a screenwriter, which is why he's an actor in the first place. Because originally his mother wanted to be an actress, but she had a more liking into writing it. So what she thought was putting her son in there instead to like kind of, you know, fill that gap. And that is how Tobey Maguire and Leonardo DiCaprio became best friends, actually.
Yeah, I think I saw this photo of when they were younger with Leo and Toby, like bowling. So that was actually a shock to me when I found that out because like it or not, I think Leo is a bigger star now, bigger than Toby. Toby does not have much going on at the moment.
No,
so,
ever since his role in, I think it's called Brothers, which I think that came out in like 2010.
yeah, I think even
2011?
more recently is The Great Gatsby. He had like a
Yeah,
lead role,
that
but no
too.
one saw that, or no one saw it through.
Nobody really gave it much credit. Like, like books, like the only movies that have been like retracted from books, like Harry Potter,
Yeah.
Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief, like those did okay, right? And Harry Potter, very popular series, right?
Made tons of money, both
Exactly.
studio and book itself. Even spawned spin-offs. They're making these, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So,
Yeah, so obviously they're making lots of money.
with Toby as well coming, full circle back to Tom here, people are worried that when he comes into the MCU, he's going to be another mentor figure to Tom. Do we want our Spider-Man still to be mentored by someone? That's something we have to think about.
Well, in a way, I can kind of see why they'd want to go that route, because bear in mind, Tom is still young, right? Like, they're portraying him as a 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid.
He's got to be graduating in this new one
Yeah,
for sure, for sure.
So he's still like a young teen.
But we've had 2 movies already where he's has these mentors. First we got RDJ, his Tony Stark, and then next one we had Mysterio. When does the mentoring stop and, our Tom finally gets to be his own Spider-Man?
I don't think necessarily Toby's gonna be a mentor. Like, sure, I think he's gonna pull him in the right direction. I feel like when the movie comes out, Toby's gonna give off the same speech his Uncle Ben did to him.
With
To
great
Tom
power
Holland
comes great responsibility. Yeah.
Because maybe he sees Tom not really using his powers correctly, so he'd want to maybe like, hey, like, with all this power, you need to be careful. And then he'll give the same speech as Uncle Ben did back in, 2001?
Yeah,
Like, it's crazy.
we got that same speech from our Spider-Man back in Civil War. He was talking about, like, the bad things happen because you couldn't prevent that or you chose not to help. So that was kind of our great power comes great responsibility snippet for our Spider-Man. But we've heard it so many times before. What's the point in saying it one more time? So I enjoyed how they rewrote that, but still incorporated it. In any case, we need to talk more Spider-Man 3. When it comes to Zendaya, our MJ, she just landed in Atlanta. She's filming her scenes right now.
That's crazy.
Do you think we're going to get a love plot between our Peter Parker and MJ?
Well, of, like, Tom Holland and
I'm
Zendaya?
just scared. Yeah, I'm just scared we're gonna get in that movie another one of those, princess needs help, save her from the castle thing.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the case. I mean, with Andrew Garfield's case, like with Emma Stone being as like Gwen Stacy, they wanted to do that. Like, they wanted to be like, oh, she's his only drive. And same with Tobey Maguire. They wanted Mary Jane to be his only drive to do this. But with Tom, it's more about, I don't know, like the people he saved and like protecting his family, keeping his identity like a secret to the public.
Except he tells literally everyone in every movie. Someone finds out who he is.
Yeah, I never really understood that with Spider-Man. Like with Tobey's case, when he did that train scene, which, by the way, fantastic. That was the best.
One of the best action scenes in any superhero film.
Exactly. But it seemed like an uplifting moment when he got helped out afterwards. Like, he was about to pass out, and then all you see is like New Yorker's hands, and then they like carry him to the back. And then they just give him his mask and be like, secret safe with us. Like, you know what I mean? But, and with Andrew's case, I feel like with him, he would have took the mask off in front of anybody. Like, I don't know, his identity didn't feel as secretive. Like The Amazing Spider-Man 1. He finally gets caught. He gets tased. He goes to the ground. His mask was off. He does hide his identity until he sees Gwen Stacy's father. I forgot his name, like Officer Stacy.
Like Captain Stacy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's call it that.
But that scene where he's like, hands above your head, all that, and then he just turns around. He's like, "You gotta let me go," and he like his mask is there. I'm like, the news has to see your face now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like if you're Spider-Man and you're like really secretive, like you need to keep that. Like you need to keep that identity.
Exactly. And it goes back to that with great power comes great responsibility thing. If you're a superhero and people find out your identity and you're going around parading that around, well, the loved ones are going to reap the reward or reap the price, pay the price. That's what I'm trying to say here. And then we at the end of Spider-Man 2 Far From Home, we got that J. Jonah Jameson reveals to the entire public that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. So that's why I think they're teeing up like, oh my goodness, we're going to have another princess needs help in the castle, save her from the castle kind of deal. It's getting a little predictable, and I'm a little afraid for our Spider-Man 3. However, I'm really excited to see our Toby and our Andrew maybe come into the fold. How is that going to happen?
Well, I feel like it's going to get set up obviously by the Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, multiverse.
And also it's pretty much been confirmed at this point that Toby and Andrew are going to be in the movie. Because if you were to look up on like Google or any search engine and you just look up the movie and you look at cast, you will see Toby and Andrew right there. But along with that, you also see Ryan Reynolds, which people are believing that Deadpool is going to make his like highly requested debut in the MCU.
And can we just talk about that for a second? Because I don't know if you've heard the rumors, but Marvel is apparently wanting to offer Ryan Reynolds the biggest deal in MCU history. They want to offer him millions and millions and millions of dollars to make more Deadpool movies, more Deadpool cameos. I think we're honestly going to get, finally, our Spidey Pool. Like that would
Spidey Pool.
Yeah, a Spidey Pool story. Could you imagine how cool that would be? It's one of the first comic books I ever bought was a Spidey Pool story. So,
yeah, but I want the story where he gets the symbiote.
The symbiote?
Where Deadpool gets the symbiote.
Oh, jeez.
That's the one I want. And also, I don't know how it can be Deadpool without it being R-rated. Because Marvel. They only get one F-bomb and that's it.
Yeah, and they haven't even used that.
No.
PG-13 movies, they are granted one F-bomb. That's all you get. But Deadpool, how long is he gonna save it? It's gonna be a running joke in the movie. Like, oh, when am I gonna do it? When am I gonna drop the bomb?
That'd be funny.
Yeah, Kevin Feige, when they bought the rights to Fox, when Disney bought the rights to Fox and got all their X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Deadpool back, Kevin Feige's like, look, we're not going to touch Deadpool 3. It's going to still be R-rated. Disney's just not going to have its name stamped on there. So, we still are going to have our Deadpool 3, our version of Deadpool, but after that, it gets PG-13. And
I would wonder what role he would play in the Doctor Strange movie, and maybe like what would he do? Like if he were to come back in the Spider-Man movie,
okay,
what would his role be? Like even if it's for like a scene, like like a small cameo, like, would he just be like, "Oh, I'm dressed like you guys. I guess I'm Spider-Man too." Like you get what I mean? Like maybe he'll make jokes like, "Oh, we all look the same. We should all team up."
Yeah, so what I'm thinking is I would love to see a fight between the three Spider-Mans and Deadpool, but at the same time, you don't know who to root for because both, like, all characters are so likable. How can you have, one bad guy and one good guy?
Who do you think would win that fight? If you were we'll take Deadpool out of the equation because he has guns. He's cheating, right?
Fair enough.
So if you were to put Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland in like the same like proximity and there's like some conflict there, who do you think would win in that fight? Like who's the strongest Spider-Man to you?
Assuming that Tobey is still donning the suit and hasn't hung it up for Mary Jane yet, assuming that, I'd say Tobey. Tobey's been doing this, first Spider-Man came out in like 1999 or 2001, something like that, right? I'd say he's been doing this longer than them. I think he has the best kind of combat style. I mean, he has the best action scene with Dr. Octopus and that infamous train scene. I haven't seen any of that from Tom. Tom, I feel, constantly runs or uses his webs way too much. I want to see more combat from him. When do we get that? I mean, we got a ton of, in this recent Far From Home movie, the drone smashing and all that jazz. but I want to see him actually fight a villain hand-to-hand combat while using his webs, and not just, using them interchangeably and not, one or the other. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I feel like Toby, I get it. He's very strong. He's very experienced with this, because, like, in the movie, I'd assume you'd be, like, what, his mid-40s, right?
Gotta be.
It's gotta be, right? And then, of course, you have Andrew. He took on a giant lizard. Like, so that there's some strength categories there. And he took on, like, a guy who's literally, like, electricity come to life. And he went up against a very underpowering Green Goblin.
Oh, my goodness. Don't get me started.
But he's done hand-to-hand combat, right? But with Tom, he just relies on technology. Like,
that's true.
Here's what I don't get. So Toby and Andrew, in their movies, their suits all handmade.
Yeah.
But with Tom's, like, Tony Stark just kind of gives it to him and just hopes.
There's too much influence from Stark. That's the problem.
If I would say this right now, if Tom Holland had a similar arc story to maybe like Andrew, if they like brought back Andrew's story and made it a bit better, cut out the mom and dad situation, obviously. But if they were to bring that back, I think Tom Holland would be the best Spider-Man. Like, he would be. Because he'd be more relatable, because, like, he's just a kid, and he's not getting handed things. Like, he's a golden child. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And he's, like, a lot younger than Toby and Andrew ever were when they initially took on the role of Spider-Man. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Tom just turned, like, what, 21, 22? So
yeah, and I think Toby was, like, in his 26 when he started Spider-Man, and I don't know how old Andrew was, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's like maybe 25 years old. Like maybe like a year younger than Toby, but you get what I mean, right?
Yeah. With, going back to it, that means Tom was at least 18 years old when he first started playing Spider-Man back in 2016 with Civil War.
Yeah.
I want to say it's 2016, which is crazy to think about. So much has happened since then. Tom is our Spider-Man. He's what we are stuck with. We can learn to love him, but we need a little more from him. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
I want a little more combat. I want a good combination between Toby and Andrew with his own little spin on it. I want to see him make his own suits. I want to see him make his own web shooters and make his own web fluid, which he did. He actually did in Spider-Man Homecoming. We see, he lifts up the lockers and he's got all this web fluid that he used to use. But now the web fluid comes from Stark. It's all Stark.
Well, now that Stark's obviously been killed off, I guess it kind of, you can put him in perspective. Like, okay, I need to start doing things I need to start doing things on my own. Like, because think about it. Since 2016, he's had to have learned, like, tons of ways to make, like, the fluids. Like, and I'm sure if you were to put in, because obviously with Toby, it just comes out of his wrist. Like, he didn't need web shooters. But with Andrew, it's what made him more relatable, because he had to build it all from scratch.
Oh my goodness, I love those scenes as well. Especially, I didn't like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but that scene where he is attempting to modify his web shooters so that Electro can't fry them again.
Yeah.
That was amazing, because he was just experimenting. We're seeing Spider-Man actually tinker with stuff to build himself up, make him better, make his web shooters cooler. But yeah, our Andrew Garfield Spider-Man was a bit more slapstick, and I wasn't super crazy about that.
I think he was a good Spider-Man. I will give him that. Like, he's probably the most comic book Spider-Man you're ever gonna get.
Is he your favorite Spider-Man?
Well, here's how I put it. So
break it down.
Well, okay. Well, first I need to talk about Toby. Toby's good in both ways, right? Like, plus he had a much better story to me. Because, they're all going through the comics.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just seemed like a much more relatable type of story. Of course, not with the comic book, like, powers. Like, he actually had, like, webs on his wrist and stuff. But I think Toby was a fantastic Peter Parker. I just think... I don't know. I'd say Toby is the best Peter Parker. I'll put it that way. And I'd say he's the second best Spider-Man. I'd put it that way.
Who's your first?
I'd have to give it to Andrew.
Andrew,
I have to.
All right.
Because, I don't know, to me, like, he's, again, like, he's the most comic book Spider-Man, like, personality-wise you're ever going to get. Like, he's corny, he's comedic in some ways.
Fair enough,
like,
yeah.
Like
That's
who?
true.
What other like? Do you see Tom Holland or Toby's Spider-Man like putting on like a firefighter's like helmet and then like
That-
spraying down Electro? Like you're not gonna see that from the other two, and that's so comic book of Andrew's Spider-Man to do.
But these are the Spider-Men that we're used to. You know, the Tobey Maguire and the Tom Holland are a little more serious, a little more down to earth. Those are the Spider-Man we've been built up for. That's why we kind of look at Andrew as if he's almost an outcast, because, you know, maybe he is the most comic book accurate Spider-Man. But the Spider-Men we're used to and the Spider-Men that work, the ones that make money for the studio, is the one we get from Tom and Tobey, the down-to-earth ones. Now, you know, Tobey and Tom, they joke probably a lot, honestly. Like, Tobey, he's very corny, but at the same time, down-to-earth and serious, and can get the seriousness of the situation. Andrew Garfield has to take off his mask mid-fight, every single fight, and then it gets serious for him. Oh, I want to see that more. Not with him taking his mask, but still being Spider-Man and still showing that human part of him. Like we see it in The Amazing Spider-Man. Like when you were talking about when Captain Stacy had him on the ground, he turns around, now it's serious. Or when Gwen Stacy died, you know, she hit her head on the floor of the
clock
the
tower.
clock tower. Thank you. Yeah. And then he had to take off his mask for it to finally be serious. So, I think if we see more of that from Andrew, I'd love it. I'd love it, love it, love it. And I think Spider-Man 3 can work because of it. Now, here's something I'm a little worried about. I don't think we're going to see them in Spider-Man 3. And here's why I think that. WandaVision comes out this year. Or sorry, no, it just got delayed to early next year. And basically Wanda's going to mess up the multiverse, mess up reality. And then Spider-Man 3 comes after that. And he's going to have to deal with the aftermath of the multiverse being screwed up. I think that's where Electro comes in. And then Doctor Strange is going to have to put it all back together. Here's where I'm worried. I'm not sure if we're going to see our Tobey or Andrew in our multiverse messed up movie of Spider-Man 3. I don't know. I think I'm scared that they're going to give them little cameos in the post-credit scene. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I mean, I could see it happen.
Yeah.
It's something Marvel tends to do at times, but I mean, you do bring up good points. Like maybe, like even in like, so do you mean like in Spider-Man 3, they're just gonna have small cameos?
I honestly think it's gonna be a small cameo thing, and honestly, I'd be okay with it. But at the same time, if you're fighting Electro, I want to see Andrew Garfield there at least.
You
You
need to at least have him. But I mean, that's a lot to think about. But maybe because with the Doctor Strange movie, maybe we will see more of them in that movie than we will in Spider-Man 3. Because it's rumored that Doctor Strange is going to be the mentor of Tom Holland in that movie. But then Doctor Strange is going to try and fix things, and then maybe you see Tom or Tobey just pop up, and then he just be like, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean?
And Benedict Cumberbatch is coming back. Oh gosh, just spit all over myself and the microphone. I'm sorry about that. No, but in any case, what I think is going to happen is that Doctor Strange just got casted in Spider-Man 3, so he's going to be in that. So we have to see it at least. Andrew at least. But let's talk about villains for a second. What are the villains going to be for this movie? Like, what do you want to see? We have Electro, but, you know, in true Spider-Man fashion, is it just going to be one villain, or are they going to try to cram a number of villains in there? What do you want?
Well, this is also another rumor that's been going around. Apparently, Spider-Man 3 is supposed to set up a, like, kind of like a sequel type thing, and it's going to be called Spider-Man Sinister 6. So I feel like we'll be seeing each Sinister Six, like the Rhino, like Green Goblin, like you'll kind of see them somewhere in there. Like, who knows? Maybe we'll have Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin again.
Oh, bring him back!
Like,
Come on!
You get what I mean? Like, I feel like they're gonna set that up, because if it's a multiverse, you gotta think like you're gonna have Electro from Andrew Garfield. You could have Doc Ock from Toby. Like, you're gonna bring all of them back, and like that'll set up something. That'll set up the Sinister Six movie. And honestly, I wouldn't mind that, because if there's multiple Spider-Man, you gotta have multiple villains to kind of balance it out a bit.
Exactly, and maybe that's what it's building to, you know what I mean? And this might be a long shot, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you got Miles Morales. Where's our Miles gonna come from? Like, that's what we have to think about too. Is, Toby gonna die, and then, Miles Morales takes up that mantle? Like,
kind of like the animated movie.
Kind of like the animated movie, yeah. Are they gonna kill off Peter Parker in that universe? And who's the Peter Parker who's going to die? It's not going to be Tom. Tom brings in the big bucks. He's got a future at Marvel. He still has a deal going for movies and movies and movies, But then we got, Toby and Andrew. Yeah, Andrew, I think, is more expendable, but Toby hasn't done it in a long time. So what's going to be the play here?
I mean, if anything, I would say kill off Toby, because the veteran of the story should because it's like Tony Stark, right? Like he was there since the beginning, and you don't want to get rid of people who are new. Like Andrew and Tom, they're the newest, obviously. Obviously, we've seen Andrew in like 2 movies, and then Tom Holland we've seen in like multiple others. But I feel like the veteran of the story, Tobey Maguire, should get killed off in a way. Like, you don't have to necessarily kill him off, but maybe kind of like paralyze him, like keep him in a certain state where he's not going to be like carrying both of them on his shoulders. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, but at the same time, I'm just scared they're going to make him that mentor figure to Tom, and I don't want the mentor figure. I want our Spider-Man to have a sense of self, a sense of, all right, only I can do this, or, work well with others, but at the same time be his own person and learn from his mistakes, not just the mistakes of others. That's my big argument here. And then also, we got to think about, do we just want to see Electro? I kind of love the idea of Kraven the Hunter coming in. I don't know if you're familiar with Kraven, but this dude is awesome. He's like very much prey-oriented, all the kind of powers of an animal you might think of, but a little more savagey, we'll put it. So he's a little more savagey, but at the same time, Sony just greenlit a Kraven the Hunter movie, and I think that'll be awesome. Like, who could you see playing Kraven?
I'm not sure, because like you said, I'm not too familiar with the villain, but you know what would be cool? If they bring in Morbius somehow. If they somehow or even Venom, like if Tom Hardy manages to get in this somehow, some way, that could set up like it's similar to like Tobey's Spider-Man 3, where like Tom's suit just gets consumed by the symbiote and his attitude changes, and then maybe that's where Tobey's like mentorness comes from. Like, you gotta take it off, you gotta like not listen to it, you gotta be your own person.
Oh my goodness, that would flow so well.
Exactly.
That would actually do really, really well. That would fit in the story so well. You have no idea. And it brings me to my next point of Tom Hardy's Venom. So, I read on either Rotten Tomatoes or IGN, it was somewhere in there that Tom Hardy is currently in talks to also be in Spider-Man 3. Now, is it going to be too many villains? The Venom and Electro? I think 2 is you're able to work with that if they're written well. But what are we going to see first? Are we going to see Venom 2 whenever that comes out? Or are we going to see Spider-Man 3? They got to think about these things before writing these screenplays. But they're already filming, so I'm not sure what the plan is here.
Honestly, it would make more sense if we saw Venom 2.
Right.
Because then maybe after the fight with Carnage, like, let's just say, like, post-credit scene. Tom Hardy, like, he's just relaxing at home, and then all of a sudden this portal that Doctor Strange, Wanda opens up by accident. He walks into it, and then he sees 3 Spider-Men fighting Electro. That could easily be a thing. Or maybe, I don't know if they are going to do this or not, but maybe Doctor Strange will open up like a portal to his universe and then ask for some aid but then maybe the symbiote will remember Toby and think like, oh, you did this to me, did that. So then it'll turn like Eddie Brock against all of the Spider-Men. So then that would kind of like bring in like, because originally in Venom he doesn't have the Spider-Man symbol, but that's because like Spider-Man hasn't been introduced, and he doesn't have a pure hatred towards him because he doesn't know who he is. But if they were to add that in there, you could have like the comic book looking Venom, and you could have Toby versus like a giant jacked like Tom Hardy. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. No, I could so see that they can finally turn Venom into a villain. You know,
instead of an
anti-hero. I love the idea that we got a Venom movie and they had to be a likable protagonist. But at the same time, Venom's a bad guy. Venom is a bad guy through and through. He can be an anti-hero, you can work with him, but it's rare. We want to see him be a villain. We want to see him conquer, to try to take down Spider-Man in every way possible. So, I want to see Tom Hardy's Venom be a villain in this movie. I would love to see that. I want to see Venom. I want to see him badly face off against Tom Holland. And I want to see what Toby's reaction is going to be to it. If it's the same symbiote or if it's a different one.
I think it would make more sense. And it would, story-wise, it'd be better if the symbiote remembers Toby. Like, all
Fantastic.
the way back. Yeah, it would be an amazing concept. Because then Toby could be like, oh no, like, you gotta stay away from this. Let me handle it type thing. Like, you know, like, kind of like a father type thing. But not really. But here's what I'd say. I'd say get a villain from... Okay, so obviously we have Electro from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, right? And for Tom Holland, it could easily be Venom. And for Toby, honestly, I want them to bring back Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin.
He was fantastic. He's the only Green Goblin that I actually enjoy. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 brought an interesting one to it. I liked the character. I liked the actor. But I hated his writing. His writing was
He was very underpowering.
Yes, and it's kind of like they wrote him as like a character with zero development whatsoever. A villain should have development. This villain was just set out, all right, here's your bad guy. Here's your bad guy. You know, kind of like scrape off, you know, what they have left. Like, let's throw him into the end of the movie. He's a bad guy now. He's a bad guy now.
Like, I think that would be better. Because you would have... Venom's not in the Sinister Six, is he? I don't think he is.
No, I think it's Rhino, Scorpion, you got Green Goblin as well. Rhino, Scorpion, Green Goblin with Vulture, and more, you know what? It doesn't matter. I think all villains are interchangeable for the Sinister Six. They should work with what they have now. And even build up our new ones. But we want to see Sinister Six soon. Kind of like an Avengers Endgame thing, but let's speed up the process. We've been through 3 Spider-Mans, and you have not given us Sinister Six. It's been 20 years since the original Spider-Man movie came out with Sam Raimi. We want to see the Sinister Six.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it would be more likely because Sam Raimi is... What, like associate director for like Doctor Strange?
No, he is the director. He is the director.
So that would make more sense for him to bring back his old characters, and also Toby. It all kind of links together. I feel like Doctor Strange is gonna set up this movie and set up at least one of the villains. One of them.
Exactly, and you know what I mean? I don't want to see a Spider-Man villain in Doctor Strange. I want to see a Spider-Man villain in Spider-Man 3. For Doctor Strange, they already confirmed that we have Nightmare. Now, Nightmare is this creepy, skinny, kind of Freddy Krueger meets Slenderman kind of guy, but the flow of black hair.
I'm thinking more of like a Scarecrow from Batman.
Oh, Scarecrow! Vibes. Yes, yeah, it's totally him. It's basically the Marvel's equivalent to that, but he jumps around in dreams. He's Freddy Krueger. He just dream hops. That's all he does. Scarecrow like induces hypnotism and what is it when you see something that isn't there? Hallucination. It's definitely, he uses hallucinogens, but with Nightmare, it's just dream hopping from mind to mind, dream to dream, nightmare to nightmare. who could you see playing Nightmare? That's the big question here.
Imagine if they brought back, like, you know what? That's a tough question. That's a tough question.
I have no idea who I could see playing him. I have zero clue. As somebody who's got like a kind of a creepy voice, kind of like this, but deep as well. So who could we see that being? But at the same time, I could see it being like a high-pitched, kind of creepy.
Yeah, like, oh my. That's a lot to think about.
Yeah, there's this actor I really love. His name is Christoph Waltz. Have you ever seen Django at all? So he's the dentist doctor that walks through Django, like lets him, who frees Django. If you think about his voice and his mannerisms, I could see that being Nightmare. That's our Nightmare, in my opinion. I could campaign for Christoph Waltz and back that up 100%.
I'd have to agree with you, because I'm not sure who else could bring that like tone to that character.
Who can be creepy but likable as a villain. I think Christoph Waltz can bring that all the way for us. Now, let's bring it back to Spider-Man 3. What other rumors have we not covered? We covered Jamie Foxx coming back, Tobey and Andrew. I heard a rumor that with Tobey and Andrew, we're going to get the respective loved ones in it too. So, like the love interest. So, Emma Stone's coming back as Gwen Stacy. And then we have, I'm forgetting who played Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst played Mary Jane.
Yeah.
So, we have these two love interests coming back as well. Is it an all-star cast? Yes. But how do you make a great movie with all these characters? I'm not sure if if the director has the chops to do that, or if they have a good screenwriter to do that.
I would say cut out Andrew Garfield's Gwen Stacy, because it makes sense. She died.
She's dead.
I want to see Spider-Man nowadays, how he's like, is he still mourning her death? How is he Spider-Man now without the drive that he had before? You know what I mean? And I feel like they should go in more depth into that. Like maybe Andrew has, or like Peter in that era has like PTSD from it. So sometimes he like hallucinates that like he sees her falling. So then that kind of gets him distracted. And then that could, I guess in a way that could like make him a bit relatable.
Yeah, I was just thinking that builds character and story. And it just develops them to a level where it's like, okay, this character's actually got some interesting traits and a big flaw that might throw off the whole team.
Yeah, like you'd see his guilt for not saving her in time. And then you'd also have to think about, like, I'm sure Tobey's had some point, like, especially with, like, Green Goblin dying, Harry Osborn in that era dying, like, there's gotta be, like, some sort of, like, grieving, like, story arc that they're probably gonna use that might distract them, which will lead to Tom Holland taking up the role.
Exactly. And how do we bring Tom Holland? You know, we have these other two Spider-Men. How do we keep them at a supporting role, but still have our protagonist, our Peter Parker, be the main character? Like, how do you find that balance is the challenge. So, but then you have that love story with MJ, and I'm just scared that'll get in the way.
I don't know.
Because history might repeat itself. That's what I'm thinking. So you have a mentor, and then you have a love story, because that's what Far From Home did. You know, I have a crush on this girl, and I want to tell her, and blah, 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 and that's kind of what threw him off, and gained the trust of his mentor, or gained the trust of Mysterio, and really solidified that. So how do we do that? That's the problem.
I don't know. Like it's like, remember in Spider-Man 3, like Sam Raimi, you know what I mean? Like that was like riddled with villains. It was just kind of like a disaster. And if you were to put, because obviously you'd have to build up like the two Spider-Mans, like where have they been, what have they been doing type thing, and adding just a love interest to that could distract us from, like, you know, the actual story arc itself.
Exactly. And you bring up a good point. How do we make sure we don't get a repeat of our really bad Spider-Man 3, Tobey Maguire? I mean, Amazing Spider-Man, that that movie, it was supposed to have a third movie, right?
Yeah.
They canceled it to do Tom Holland. So how do we make sure that we actually get a Spider-Man 3 movie that we want to see and that we will see, we will enjoy, critics will enjoy, that will make money? Now, Spider-Man 3 did really well with Tobey Maguire. They made like upwards of 860 million, I want to say.
But that's just because of you got Venom coming, you got Sandman, you had Green Goblin.
Spider-Man 2 won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. I mean, you had all that backflow. Of course Spider-Man 3 is going to happen. Of course it is. But where they went wrong was the studio wanted to shove Venom in there really, really badly. Sam Raimi didn't want it, but the studio did. And we were only supposed to get our Harry Osborn becoming Green Goblin and our Sandman. Can we talk about Sandman in that film? He was fantastic. What a great villain. Great story. Great motivation. So likable. So relatable. But at the same time, we recognize that he is a bad guy.
Exactly. And if they will bring him back, this is going to be a long stretch.
Okay.
I feel like Dave Bautista would be a good Sandman. I don't know why. I just see him being a good Sandman.
But at the same time, we already have him
Drax,
in the MCU. Yeah. He's a fantastic Drax. I don't want to take that from him. So what I'm thinking, they bring back the original guy who played Sandman. His name is fleeting from me, the actor.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic. He looked the part and he sounded the part and he did so well. And he's still alive in that universe. So I want to see him again.
Is he alive? Because at the end of Spider-Man 3, he kind of like Thanos snaps out of existence type thing, you know? Like he kind of fade. Yeah, he's sand, but yeah, well, I don't know how you can really kill sand.
You can't, meaning he's alive. He's got to be alive. There's no way he isn't alive. I want to see him in this film. I want to see him in Spider-Man 3 or a Sinister Six team-up because he is fantastic. The only thing is, did his daughter die of her illness that she had? Is that going to get rid of his motivation or add to his motivation and make him a more driven villain? I want to see him in Sinister Six. This is my point right here.
Of course. And we all knew it was gonna happen because at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, you had this guy walk into Harry Osborn's jail cell, and then he walked past like Rhino's gear, Dr. Octopus's legs. Like it was building up to the Sinister Six reveal, and then obviously you had the lackluster ending of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like how Andrew Garfield had that send-off. Like, you know, I feel like he deserved a much better send-off. Like, Tobey's send-off also wasn't the greatest, but at least it made, like, money and it got, like, some good critics, you know? But with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the only thing that was really good about the movie was the realism, like,
the web slinging.
Yeah, the web slinging. Like, he had to modify them to defeat Electro. And Electro himself. He was by far one of the best Spider-Man villains that we will ever see, probably. I don't know how you can top.
Okay, he was fun to watch on screen, but the way he geeked out about Spider-Man was just so uncomfortable. Like,
but it kind of made the story okay, because when he's like scared, like in Town Square, and then Spider-Man shows up, he's like, "Do you not remember me?" Like, it kind of added to the story. Like, Spider-Man, like, does he really know all these people? Does he really care about the ones he saves? Exactly.
Interesting. Why didn't they bring that to light in this film? That's
the thing. Maybe they will, if Andrew were to be more than just a cameo in this movie. But it's hard to say, really.
I'd love to see them bring back that theme in Spider-Man 3. I would not have a problem with it. Like, does Spider-Man actually care about the ones he saves, or is he only fighting for himself? Is he only fighting to fight? Like, that's I want to see that internal character struggle. Like, what other struggles could we see in Spider-Man 3? Like, is Aunt May gonna die? Probably not. A lot of people, like her.
And especially Happy.
Especially Happy. By the way, develop that. I love that.
Where he's like, I'm in love with Peter's aunt.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
That was so funny. They had such a great subplot with that as well. I just want to see a little more of that. And then you also got to think about, we have Skrulls in the MCU now, right? And, we at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, Nick Fury's on his sword space station. So what are we going to see from that? Like, how's that going to affect Spider-Man? And when can we see that,
I don't know if they're going to even go off of that. Because I think in Far From Home, it was kind of just there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was kind of like one of those MCU teasers that they do for, look what we're setting up in the next phase.
Yeah, and the next phase being like 4 years later. Like, it's a long waiting time for us to finally see what we want come to life,
Finally get those payoffs. I mean, it was what the MCU started in 2008, finished in 2019 with Avengers Endgame. You know what that means? 11 years. 11 years Marvel fans had to wait for that big giant, because we initially saw it in 2012, Thanos, right? We in the Avengers, he was in that post-credit scene. We had to wait 6 years to finally see him kick some mother-loving butt. And then we finally got that gigantic team-up in Avengers Endgame. Like, how long are we going to wait to see, our Spider-Man team up? These are only rumors right now, right?
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
are not.
Nothing is confirmed.
Nothing's
However,
confirmed.
There has been some set shots, obviously not revealing too much. Like, you just see them out in the city doing their thing. And now with Zendaya, like, going in now and filming, we're probably going to get more set photos. Like, it's similar to, like, the Batman, right? Like, we got set films right away.
We're still getting them.
Exactly.
We're still getting them.
Like, it's crazy. Like, and I feel like maybe with this movie, they're going to try and keep it on the low. Because especially if they're introducing Tobey and Andrew back in the same movie as Tom Holland, they're going to want to keep that a secret. They want to keep that a surprise for trailers, teasers, when that comes out. And especially with Doctor Strange, like, I'm sure they'd want to keep that on the low as well.
The only one not keeping things on the down low is J. Jonah Jameson himself, J.K. Simmons. This guy has been opening up so much about Spider-Man 3. One of the biggest spoilers he spoiled was, like, he's like, yeah, I already filmed my scenes for Spider-Man 3. I filmed them, like months and months ago. Like, so I'm excited to see how Jameson is going to have an effect in this movie. I want to see him badger Spider-Man so well. I've been waiting 2 Tom Holland movies to see my Jameson finally badger him. And look how different Jameson is in this one. He actually
He's bald!
He's bald! Yeah, he's got a little shiner on his head. What is that?
But, I mean, it's not comic book. Like, you're not going to get better than Simmons. You're not going to. Because he looks like, if you look at a comic book J. Jonah Jameson and look at him in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, it's the same person. Like, you're not, even in the voice, like, no, like, his voice is like an angry, douchey boss type thing. Like, especially like, Parker, you're fired. Like, like, you're not gonna get better than that. Like, who do you think would play a good J. Jonah Jameson?
I can't think of a single one.
Back?
Like, if J.K. Simmons was never born kind of deal, who's kind of, like, loud and obnoxious and can be that, broad person. I can't think of another actor like J. Jonah Jameson. Like J.K. Simmons.
And his name starts with a J.
Right. Like, I just confused it, man. Which is perfect for him. It means he owns this role and it is his role. So my only big question is, what kind of role is he going to play in Spider-Man 3? Maybe. Is he going to badger all 3 Spider-Man?
Maybe he's going to badger Tobey's the most, because obviously there's a history behind those two.
But is it the same Jameson? That's the thing. Is Jameson the first one to multiverse hop? I guarantee not.
No, I hope not.
I think they're just recycling the character.
Which, obviously, that's okay, because like we said, nobody can really play J. Jonah Jameson like J.K. Simmons.
Exactly. I want to see
Tom do something with Jameson. I don't know. I feel like he'll have an interesting reaction to it. I want to see a scene between those two.
Like, kind of be like, why would you let out my identity like that?
Because in Spider-Man, in like the original series with Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, did they ever have a conversation? Like Spider-Man and J.K. Simmons?
They have. In the first Spider-Man movie, Peter was putting in his photos to Jameson. He's like, crap, mega crap. Like, you know, like he's kind of like bashing him. And then all of a sudden, Peter walks away, and then Green Goblin busts through the door, and then he's like, who's the person who takes pictures of Spider-Man? Then all of a sudden, Spider-Man comes up behind him, and he's like, you know, like he's saying, like, put him down, all that. And then Jameson's like, I knew you two were in this together. And then he's like, let mommy and daddy talk for a second. Well, yeah, like that's comedic. Like, they have had conversations before. And I guess sometimes you can kind of see it with Tobey's, like, Peter Parker, because Jameson would always bash him and stuff. And then Tobey would try and, like, save his identity. Like, oh, no, he was helping these people. Same with Andrew. Like, in The Amazing Spider-Man, people were like, just let the police do their job. This guy in a mask, like, he's not justice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that builds up the persona of Spider-Man. Like, is he a criminal? Is he a hero?
It makes people question that and maybe actually get answers. And more than likely, that answer is going to be yes. He's a hero. Sometimes you need a little criticism and you need a little judgment that people actually start seeing you for who you really are.
Exactly. And then with, like, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, like, did you really see any backlash for what he's done? Have you really seen any, other than, like, RDJ just telling him, like, you can't keep doing this and that? Like, especially in Homecoming.
So the only flack I've really heard for Tom Holland is the mentor thing, and I couldn't agree more. And the fact that he hasn't made any of his suits. So I want to see that in this movie. I want to see...
It makes you more relatable if you do something from scratch. They need to start doing that.
Exactly. I want to see Peter Parker put himself in the suit, quite literally. You know, like, make his own version of it and not just this CGI thing that we have to look at the whole time.
Exactly.
Because he's wearing a suit the whole time on set. Like, a whole CGI suit is what it's got, like, these little... white rectangles.
Yeah, and then with Tobey and Andrew, those are legit suits.
Those are legit suits.
Those are legit spandex.
Yeah. So I want to see a little more of that. It's a little more realistic, and it's what makes me kind of sit down and watch and be relatable to that character, because every good story is character-driven. And if you can have your character wear something that, you know, you might make yourself, it's worth it. It's worth it in the end. So...
And also, like, to think about it, like, it's more relatable, right? Because then you could just say, like, oh, maybe I could do that too.
Exactly. And it looks like most of our story is going to be taking place in New York City with those, you know, help me out here, the on-set locations that they shot, right? That everyone's taking pictures of and all that jazz. So... do you want to see the grand scheme of the story take place in New York City? I wouldn't mind. I think it's bringing Spider-Man back to his hometown. I want to see him expand a little more into what kind of city we actually have. And because we haven't seen it very much in the Spider-Man movies. We saw little bits of it, but mostly in the suburbs. He went to Washington, D.C. In the first one, Far From Home. He was in New York for like 5 minutes total for screen time, 100%. So I want to see this movie take place primarily in New York City. Bring back Spider-Man to his roots. You have Jameson here. You have Zendaya, Aunt May. Let them be part of the story.
I mean, Aunt May's kind of a part of the story. It's just she's more of a comedic side of it.
Exactly,
which, like,
yeah.
And it's a different take because in Andrew's and Tobey's Spider-Man movies, Aunt May was like the seriousness of the movie. Like in Tobey's films, she was like giving him confidence.
It's true.
And then in Andrew's, she's kind of giving him like results. Like, you got to do it like this, or like what happened here. Like,
so true.
And then with Tom's, she's just kind of like this young teen mom type thing. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that is a bit more relatable, but if you're thinking of like Aunt May comic book wise, you gotta give it up to Toby and Andrew's Aunt May's.
Exactly.
It's insane to me how neither of those two actors like came back for like a cameo or something. Which will we see them in Spider-Man 3 in a way?
The Aunt Mays. Oh, if they're bringing back the love interest already, I don't want to see the Mays.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think they're all great. I'm pretty sure the one from Toby's movies actually passed away. So, so there's no possibility for there. But I loved Andrew's Aunt May. It's the only part of Amazing Spider-Man 2 I actually didn't mind. She was fantastic, where she was explaining like, "Oh, you're my boy. Like you're my boy," you know, and she was the best part about that movie. So seeing her again, I don't want to. I would be okay with it, but I don't want to. Let's keep with our Aunt May, because it's gonna get weird with the love interest. It's gonna get weird with the multiple Spider-Men. I don't know. I want to see it though.
And do you think that maybe because was Uncle Ben even mentioned in Tom's like universe? Because
No.
would we see like Toby and Andrew talk about Uncle Ben's death during this movie? Would that play some sort of role on Tom? Like, I've never had that happen to me before.
You know what's interesting about that? We can have Andrew's character flaw be the Gwen Stacy thing, and hallucinating.
Which is
her
more
death.
reason why the love interest of his shouldn't come back.
Great. And then with Toby, what's his character flaw is the question we have to answer. Like, what's he gonna bring down for the team?
Well, for me personally, because Harry Osborn was his best friend, right? Like, we all know that. Like, in Andrew's age, like, they had, like, a gap where they never saw each other. But in Toby's case, it's like they've seen each other every day ever since they were kids. So, maybe for his is, like, his death. Because think about a death of, like, a best friend. That's deep. That hits
Yeah.
deep. Or even his Uncle Ben's death, which still probably haunts him to this day. And then for Tom's, I'm not sure what, like, his only flaw I think would really be was like his inexperience, and like he hasn't really done hand-to-hand combat like with any like big, like he hasn't fought a guy with like 8 robotic or like
That's
6
true.
robotic arms, or he hasn't faced like a giant lizard or a guy who's just electricity. Like Tom Holland needs more like
Spectacle.
exactly, and he needs more reason for us to believe he is the strongest Spider-Man.
Exactly. I don't think I've ever seen him hit a Spider-Man villain in the face, like an actual genuine punch. Can you think of at any time in Spider-Man Homecoming, all of our villains have gone down by their own gear? Vulture, his faulty wings blew up behind him. He went down that way. Mysterio had the gun in hand. He shot it at Spider-Man, and then, his spidey senses told him to grab the arm, so he ended up shooting one of the trusses, the metal trusses behind Spider-Man, and it ended up ricocheting and hitting him in the gut, and he died, as far as we know. But I don't want to see a Spider-Man or a Spider-Man villain die by his own gear anymore. I want to see...
We want to see a genuine fight and a genuine winner.
I want to see contact between Spider-Man's fist and the guy's cheekbone. Electro, punch him in the face at least once. We deserve it from Tom, because no hand-to-hand combat whatsoever. I want to see that.
Like, even in Civil War, he would just kind of like shoot his webs. Like, he's
Exactly.
kind of like a zoner.
Exactly the way he took down Ant-Man. He was like, you ever see Empire Strikes Back? He swings around Ant-Man's legs, and that's how he goes down.
And with Cap, all he really did was try and like web his legs and like trip him.
Oh, that's
But then, of course,
true.
Cap counters, and then
Like I said, our Peter Parker, our Spider-Man uses his webs way too much in combat. He relies too much on them. We want to see a little more combat, is all I'm saying.
and same with like that scene where he caught Winter Soldier's arm. Like, we know he has the strength to do this, but he's just a kid. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And, he has the strength to do this. He could take down these people within punches and combat. I really think with Electro, they're just gonna give him taser webs or something stupid that he can fight with just webs alone. But I want to see maybe his suit get a little more electricity proof. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Give him some kind of advantage to counter that weakness that he has. Like, he can still get electrocuted. Just make it, ground him to the floor or something. I don't care. I just want to see some hand-to-hand combat in this Spider-Man 3.
And hopefully it's not just Toby and Andrew doing all the fighting. Hopefully we see a little bit of Tom Holland, his, maybe, in a way, his anger. Because we haven't really seen that Peter Parker really, angry to the point where he'd want to punch somebody.
Exactly. Our Tom has mostly been distressed, stressed, and annoyed. I just want to see that anger, maybe. Maybe that emotion come out, let it get the best of him.
Especially if they add this symbiote story arc comes into play, we can see that anger side. Because it happened with Toby. So you can easily do that with Tom. You could easily do it.
Exactly. So, that's our podcast on Spider-Man 3. Please tell your friends, because we are on the growth line here, and we need your help. So follow on Twitch, Spotify, and YouTube. Keep an eye out, guys.
See you guys later.